man I thought was my friend ruined my career and wiped out my bank account. My name is Mark Whitman. I am 41 years old. I worked for the U.S. Cybersecurity Agency for 16 years. I am married, or at least I was. I was with Emily for 9 years. Now all I have left are empty message boxes.
Throughout my career,
I prevented 28 cyber attacks at the federal level. I signed comprehensive files on my own. I didn't make a mistake, but a mistake chose me. Noah Thompson, a Harvard graduate. He is as notable for his cool composure as he is for his brilliant mind. I brought him to the agency. When I first read his resume, I thought to myself, this guy will surpass me one day. But I hired him anyway, because I'm not afraid of intelligence. I'm afraid of disloyalty. For the first 2 years, we worked nonstop. We rewrote some of the agency's protocols. Our code was integrated into the CIA's main system. The nights I spent with him were more than the nights I spent with my wife. One night, there was a problem at the data center in the early hours of the morning. When the alarm went off, we both jumped to the computers at the same time. At that moment, I thought I could lean on this man forever. But the real truth came out one night 3 years later. 346, one of the main servers, transferred 9.3 gigabytes to an anonymous account based in Switzerland. The file contents: agent lists, defense systems, nuclear protocols. The state's digital heart had been stolen.
who was the sender?
The system logs pointed to a single user, mwhitman.fed4. That is, me. I had been on leave for 3 days. I was in the mountains, in a place where there was no phone signal. It was impossible for me to connect to the internet. But the system accused me. When the FBI raided my home, it was 4:22 a.m. Emily screamed. My son was crying in his room. When they cuffed me, I didn't even know what I was accused of. But something inside me broke. Whatever I said during the interrogation wasn't enough. The way the incident was planned was so masterful that for a moment I even thought, did I really do it? When they looked into my eyes, they may have seen that I was innocent, but the documents in their hands spoke louder. I tried to access my accounts. None of them worked. Backup cards, crypto wallets, authorized access files. All my systems had been wiped clean. I lost everything. My reputation, my money, my family. And that night, my phone rang. There was no number. I answered. Silence. Then that voice, completely devoid of emotion, robotic. It was necessary, Mark. To advance my career, I needed to make room. The voice belonged to Noah. No regret, no anger, no gratitude. He said it as if he were simply stating a fact, as if he had overtaken someone in traffic and forgotten to signal. So indifferent, so confident. The phone hung up. I was still holding the device, my eyes fixed on a single point. I didn't move for minutes. In that moment, I realized this wasn't an ordinary betrayal. It was an execution, a silent, digital, traceless elimination. And Noah, he thought he'd erased me, but he'd only silenced Mark Whitman. The man who raised him was still alive. And now there was nothing left to lose that was worth anything. That made him free. I am Mark Whitman, Chief Analyst, Defense Protocol Writer. I spent 7 years as a Systems Chief Engineer at the National Crisis Management Agency. I did not produce security solutions for the weak, but for states. And now, with the same knowledge, I was preparing to quietly cut the veins of a system. Revenge is taken not with anger, but with reason. That night, when the handcuffs were removed, I buried my anger. I placed it inside me like a cold layer of ice. From that moment on, Mark was gone. From that moment on, there was only the plan. And that plan would run like clockwork. First task, silence. I logged out of the system. I erased all traces of myself from social media. I sold my phone, changed my identity. I rejected the defense the lawyers offered because I wasn't going to clear my name. I was going to destroy Noah. Second task, information. There was only one person left inside who believed in me. Emily's brother, Ryan. He was a former NSA consultant. He had moved to Utah after his divorce. I wrote him just 3 words. I want the logs. Stay silent. 2 weeks later, I received 1.7 terabytes of raw data. Noah's activity logs from the past 18 months. VPNs, obfuscated IPs, encrypted protocol attempts, but it was all very clean. So clean that I even noticed the software that wrote the logs. Because I wrote the software From that moment on, my goal became clear. I would take him down with his own code. My plan was three-pronged. 1, lure him out of his safe zone. 2, get him to open the system himself. 3, that start the decay from within. First step, trust. After making the accusation, Noah was assigned to a new position. He had become the CTO of a private software company, but he had tied the company's code infrastructure to the government's protocols. So my spirit was still roaming within the system. I created a fake identity, Edward Lane, a consultant who gave talks on global cyber risks and taught at MIT. LinkedIn, Medium, even a few podcasts, all fake but flawless. 6 months later, Noah's company contacted Edward Lane. They wanted consulting services, and I returned to the meeting room. Unwittingly, they opened the virtual doors for me. Second phase, analysis. I studied his system for weeks, how he integrated the code he stole into his own system, what he changed, what he copied, and most importantly, what he didn't understand. I had left such a small, such an invisible backdoor in the code. He hadn't even noticed it himself, because some code is only loyal to its author, and loyalty was the one thing Noah didn't have. Stage 3, explosion. I placed timed query sequences in the database system. At first, they do nothing. But when triggered at a specific date and IP range, they insert fake permission conflicts into the logs. The system reports its own security contradictions and directly flags the administrator, Noah, as a suspect. All it took was one sentence to trigger the event. Noah, I noticed a conflict in this code sequence. Want to take a look? And he did. He exported the necessary logs. He initiated his own downfall with his own hands. I just watched, because some revenge isn't taken with a gun. Some revenge is taken with data, and data doesn't lie. Revenge takes time, but justice waits for the right moment. And that moment came on the morning of October 14th. At 9:17 a.m., Noah logged into the system to prepare the weekly internal audit report. It had been a normal start to the day. He had bought coffee for his team and postponed the Monday meeting by 15 minutes. Everything was under control. But from that moment on, the system began to behave differently. Access restrictions appeared. Permissions conflicted. Code had been executed under his name, but without authorization, had infiltrated the system. Noah realized something was wrong, but it was too late. At 10:02, the company's main firewall collapsed inward. The servers began to identify each other's security protocols as hostile. The entire system marked him as the culprit. In a panic, he typed commands into the system to clear himself, but every line buried him a little deeper, because the trigger I had embedded deep within the code was logging every one of his actions as suspicious intervention. So no matter what he did, the crime kept growing. 11:15. Cybersecurity officials intervened in the system, but by the time they arrived, it was too late. Noah's name had turned red 3 times on the company's internal audit screens under the headings: data misuse, abuse of authority, commercial espionage. At the same time, the FBI raided his home. Exactly 1 year earlier, they had come to my home. Same time, same procedure, same handcuffs. At that moment, I just laughed, because this victory wasn't celebrated with a shout, but with silence. When Noah was arrested, he didn't say a word, but I know that voice was still ringing in his ears. It was necessary, Mark. I needed to make room in my career. I whispered back to him silently. And I dug your grave, Noah, just a bit more professionally. 2 months later, they called me again. They offered me a position back in the government system. I declined, because some men are there to protect the system. Others are there to remind it of itself. I'm just watching now, but if anyone tries to mess with the system, I'm still here, and I'm still keeping score. There are many who think like Noah, those who walk the path with you and then leave you behind, those who stab you in the back to rise up. Perhaps there is a Noah in your life too. The plan in this video shows how revenge can be taken with patience. What about you? If you were betrayed like this, what would you do? Write in the comments. Should that man have been forgiven, or should he have been punished more severely? Subscribe, because the next story is darker, deeper, and much more real. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss the new videos. The scenarios here are not just stories. Sometimes they're just one step away from reality.